How'd we do?
Yeah.
I think that is a 3 out of 10. But, we're going to have a great day today. We've got some great keynote speakers for you, live breakout sessions. So we put the schedule up today. So we're starting here. First thing, Tom Stickney, I just want to introduce 2 of our staff before we do that. But before we get into the introductions and getting Tom started, the afternoon is what's probably the change, right? We talked about the time that we had on the schedule and we printed. We're going to be 50 minutes with each session and then the changeovers. So remember, Joe's room here is adjacent to my left here, and then the range team, just find that Trackman tent on the range, and that's where those sessions will be. You'll have the choice. Where do you want to go? What do you want to see? If you have any questions about what one might be most appropriate for you, just find one of our staff to kind of let you know which one we think is best. We had some late arrivals yesterday, and they weren't late. It was because they were doing the long drive championship. And I want to introduce 2 great people that have been with us for a really long time. I think the first one is going to be Kevin Noble. I think Kevin, if you haven't met him, right here. Kevin, I'll just call the greatest support person ever. He's my right hand. He does a great job for not just all of you guys. You guys give great feedback. But he helps me in so many ways. So Kevin, thanks a lot. We're really happy to have you. The next one was actually the first hire that I ever got to make. Justin Paget, if you can come out. Justin. Good job, Kevin. But Justin's now working for us in business development, but when Justin first started, his responsibility was basically take Trackman out on tour, work with the tour pros, help them understand more about what Trackman does. He did a great job for us in sales, and now he's really in business development. So he's half Danish now, half American, but he's doing a great job for us as well. So again, thanks to Kevin for being with us as well. And they even clean up their messes. This is great. So without going on too long, again, if you have any questions about which sessions, do find any of us. The way it's going to work is once we finish at 10 o'clock, we're going to run right out to the range. That's where the live lessons are going to start. And then we're going to go into lunch. Listen, what happens at the end of the day, it's difficult for us to say goodbye because we're going to be in different sessions and different places. So I'll take the opportunity to say goodbye for now. We look forward to seeing you at upcoming events, staying in touch with you. Please let us know how we can make your Trackman investment work better for you. We take that feedback very seriously. Like I said, we plow it back into the resources, the engineering team, making better product for you. But thanks so much for being our customer. We really couldn't do any of this without you. So it's you that's helped us do what we do for you today. So without further, I want Errol, our event strategist.
That's a good interest, though, right?
Is he going to get a hand for that? I know yesterday. All right. Errol, if you could, please introduce our keynotes. Thank you.
So this morning we have 2 featured speakers for you. Starting off is going to be Tom Stickney. Yeah, good sound check there.
Check.
So Tom is a top 100 instructor with Golf Magazine. He's the director of instruction at Bighorn Golf Club and Promontory Club. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes.
Great. He's a esteemed instructor. I actually saw him give a very good presentation similar to this one at the Top 100 Summit a couple weeks ago in Durham to all his peers. So he's going to share similar thoughts with you all. So without further ado, we're going to turn it over to Mr. Stickney.
First of all, I want to say thanks, and it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to speak in front of you, and it's an honor to know all of you. I don't ever claim to be the smartest guy in the room, but I will say that I learn from each and every one of you, and I know a lot of you, and I continue to learn from each and every one of you, and I want to say thank you very much, because when I first got into golf instruction, it was pretty much a closed shop. It wasn't YouTube, it wasn't the internet, it was all books, and a lot of people didn't want to share their proprietary information, so to speak, and I've always been of the thing that the more we talk, and the more that we understand as a team, the better my students are going to get, the better your students are going to get, and more importantly, it's going to make our life a lot easier. And As we know, this thing sometimes can be really hard with us, so I need all the help I can get, and I thank each and every one. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Trackman. And there's always been a big argument. Can you really teach without Trackman? Is there a way that you can be just as good? Now, I've always been of the thing that, hey, coaches are coaches and teachers are teachers, and we're all pretty doggone good at what we do. If you weren't good at what you do, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be trying to learn more. You wouldn't have a full lesson book. So I think the answer is yes. But you can do it. However, Trackman makes you more efficient. As we all know, it's an MRI of collision, and it really makes you understand what's going on. It takes out all the guesswork. We know that the Trackman is only as good as a teacher using it. So if you don't take the time to educate yourself on how to use this machine to its top benefits, you are doing yourself and your students a disservice. Now, a quick show of hands. How many of you would think that you know how to use the machine at 50% of its capabilities? Yeah, a few people. All right. How many people think they know about 75% of what the machine does? Yeah. How many think you know everything about it? Now, I'm not talking about the super duper nuance, but let's have, how many of you think you know about 100% of what this thing can do? Not very many of you. So that's what we're here to do. We're here to make sure that we educate you on how to use this thing, because the great thing about Trackman is it has all this information and we want to be able to use it. Now, one of the greatest things about Trackman is we care how you fix the issue. It doesn't matter if you're stack and tilt, you're gravity golf, you're a one plane, you're a two plane, and you're doing something that's brand new. The bottom line is Trackman only cares about how you manipulate the numbers. And the greatest thing about this is I really feel that because of this, the first generation of Trackman teachers are very focused in on making these numbers say what they want. But now, as we start to learn more, it's not about how to make the numbers do. It's not about what the club does. Bottom line, I think we're going to see a lot more efficiencies in golf that have a little bit more idiosyncratic motions, because we're not trying to force players into a certain particular motion. I really feel like it should be used to teach feel. Hey, do me a favor, swing left. You feel that? Okay, that's too far left. Swing right. You feel that? That's too far right. Let's get that one in the middle. You have the ability to use this thing to teach feel. I don't think too many of you use that thing to teach feel. That's a really cool thing about the Trackman. I love what Chuck Cook says. It's not about pleasing the machine. It's not about making sure that angle of attack is 2 down every time. It's not about making sure that your swing plane is 0'd out, your VSP is whatever. Remember, there are idiosyncrasies. We're not robots. James Wise is a great thing. Trackman audits the instructor. It's watching me. So if you come in for a lesson with me and I say, I want you to do X, Y, and Z, and all of a sudden the numbers get worse, what's going on? I'm going the wrong direction. Or the student, I say, hey, do me a favor, swing more to the right. What do you feel? And the numbers get worse or better. Then we know what the feel is. And we also know what direction that we need to go. So it's always auditing what you're doing. That's what I love so much about it. It gives me instant feedback to make sure that if I change X, Y, or Z, I know what's going on. Now, the biggest thing that I really think about Trackman, this is what we really do focus on, is you got to insulate your players. We know that there's 26 data parameters. It is not your job and not the student's job to see every one of those data parameters. One of the greatest software developments of Trackman is the ability to take away data that is unnecessary. When you see 26 data points, people tend to freak out. If you have Mr. Johnson who's hyper aware of his club head speed or his carry distance, and all of a sudden he sees that, he stopped listening to you about his face path or his spin axis or whatever. He's more focused in on his club head speed. So take the time to take that stuff away. It's very, very important. Obviously, we know coaches can art science stuff. So, when I first got into golf instruction, I kind of envisioned that this is what I would see. Guys, people that can move, this is going to be the easiest gig ever. Because all the only knowledge I had was college golf. And I'm thinking, perfect, everything's swing there. And that's kind of what I saw. I'm like, hey, that's not going to be too hard to do. I got to teach that guy. As we all know, the reality, the average players, the choppers and beaters, this is what we see. Now, I'm going to tell you before I put this slide up. This particular gentleman came in and he said, Tom, I'm really worried that I'm going to do something that you haven't seen before. And I said, Ron, I've been teaching golf for 21 years full time. I assure you, there's not a shot you can hit that I haven't seen. So when he did that, I went, well, Looks like you got me there, pal. So anyway, that's kind of the reality of golf instruction. Thanks, Ron, for being my scapegoat here. All right, we know the average player has different problems. All right, they have poor information. They don't understand the new ball flight laws. I'm trying to educate those people. They have little to no awareness of where they are in time and space. You know, my favorite one is I go, keep your head still. They go, is that it? No, not quite. So we need to get in the way to feel that. They had a high percentage of unsolved golf shots with horizontal and vertical gear effect. Remember, we know that gear effect will change the face-to-path awareness. Face-to-path alignments, it can make it worse, it can make it better. So we need to make sure that we understand the gear effect and the shots that they hit. They expect unrealistic expectations. They want a 100-mile-an-hour ball speed that produces 280 yards. It works. And they possess mechanical flaws that might or might not be able to be fixed, and they have time constraints that hamper their practice time. So you got to remember, when you're teaching the average player how to like the good player, you got to deal with all this stuff. Now let's talk about the average golfer here. You've seen some of this before. We know the LPGA Tour average is kind of what the average golfer looks like on a good day, not a great day, a good day. 94 miles an hour, 93. We see the discrepancy in ball speed due to spin loft. Could be extreme face of path. Could also be low smash, all that kind of good stuff. So on and so forth. If you want to figure out what it's like to play as your golfer, as your average player, go out and hit your 5-iron off every tee. And that will give you an awareness of what it is to be an average golfer. And sometimes we lose track of that as teachers because it becomes so easy to us. So we really need to make sure that we understand that. Because if you lose perspective of your average player, it's going to be tough. Get that turned down a little bit. Okay, the question is, how do you use Trackman to help? This is the biggest issue. We have to make sure that we have all these data parameters. Which ones do we use? Remember, I told you earlier, you all know how to teach. The key to learning how to use Trackman effectively is to take away all the crap that doesn't matter. If you're working on face to path, and this guy right here, you're working on angle of attack, then you shouldn't be worried too much about his launch angle or his swing plane. If it's okay. Remember, it's okay to take some of the stuff away. You're not trying to do everything in one lesson. So what do teachers know? Like I said before, you know how to teach. You wouldn't be here if you didn't know how to teach. You know what the students want because hopefully you've interviewed them. So we get that taken care of, sorry. You know what the student wants because you've interviewed them. If you haven't interviewed them, then it's going to be tough. The whole thing about interviewing the student and why it's so vitally important is because if you have somebody that says, I want to stop slicing it, then that's one direction. If he says, hey, I want to hit it further, that's another direction. You have to make sure that you use this machine in the way it's supposed to be used, and you focus in on what the students want. You know the protocols to follow based on what you teach. You know how to do that. You know how to make sure that you go, okay, well, if the guy's doing X, Y, and Z, I'm going to do this particular drill, that drill. So we know all this stuff. But the greatest thing now, is we have a tool to audit our progress. Like I said before, Trackman will help you to audit what's going on. And you've got to remove the extra information. You've got to insulate your clients from all the extra information or you're going to get it in. Thank you so much. Okay, so as we look at this particular guy, you know, we see a certain just an average player. We know what's going on. So when we start to look at this, we see, you know, a face angle that's well left of the target. It's 7/8 left of the pass. We know the ball's going to start to direct the face, curve away from path, all that kind of good stuff. He's hit it pretty solid, you know. So instead of worrying about all the stuff that doesn't matter, we really have to focus in on just the face to path because this guy comes in and says, man, I'm tired of falling. So now you know kind of what direction to go. All right, so as we continue on, we want to talk about the 5 problems of the average golfer that we face and how to cure these. And we're going to make sure, by the way, I'm also going to make sure all this presentation is emailed to you as well. So the first thing is lack of consistency. We know that most of our players come to us with a lack of consistency. They come in, they don't know where it's going, they don't know where it's coming down. As an instructor, we have to give our students delivery windows. Okay? I had a student that came in, he was swinging 12 left. I said, hey, you got to come more from the inside. He next my team come more from the inside. Comes back a week later, he's 12 right. All right, so the guy moved his path 24 degrees. My fault. I didn't even way to audit that and get him into a position where it didn't become too grandiose the other way. So you got to give yourself delivery windows. So we know that basically we have a lack of consistency, usually some sort of face-to-path relationship. We know that it can be the path going one way, the face going another, but you have to figure out which one is causing the issue. Based on your average golfer, very well might be some path issues or face issues. You have to go in that direction. So your face-to-path issue is very, very important because it helps you to make them more consistent. Sometimes you move the face, sometimes you move the path. Now, the one thing you have to be very cognizant of is when you're working on face-to-path, you have to understand your horizontal impact point. If you hit the ball on the toe, it's go left, the ball on the heel, it's go right. So like I said before, all the work you do on face-to-path can be eradicated or exacerbated by your horizontal impact point. That's why you're making sure that you have the spray and you understand their trends on hitting the ball in the face are right there. Now, as we look at angle of attack and dynamic loss and secondary issues of consistency, we know that when the D plane shrinks, it tends to tilt more aggressively. Okay, so that's why you curve your driver more than your iron. Because the D plane is shrunk, the spin block is shrunk, and all of a sudden that tilts with it. So when you start seeing a lack of consistency, remember, they're delivering 18 different lofts. This D plane, the spin block will go like this, they don't know where they're going, so we really have to make sure that we control the spin block. Now, as an average player, we want to keep them in certain parameters. I just don't want it going, I want the spin block being 15 and then 87. You know, we got to keep it somewhere in the right area so they can be more consistent. And then obviously when we have speed, we're going to start to see a lot of issues when it comes to the ball. Now let's take a look at this guy. So what do we see? Let's see a path that's to the left, not for left. We see a face angle that's going pretty right. So we see a face to path that's a little high, and we see a little push cut. All right, so this is the average type of slicer. So here, you got to figure out, do we move the path or move the face? Sometimes you'll do one or the other, sometimes you'll do both. This is usually what you see on our better players. The path is out to the right. This is the guy that has more information. I got to swing it to right field with big release. And what happens? Path 4-5 right, we see the face angle is 8-5 left of the path. And now all of a sudden, what do we see? Big old snap hook. So this person hooks the ball because of the lack of education of ball flight. This player can do the hard part, get the path to the right. Now we just got to make sure the face follows suit. So when it comes to consistency, we really need to understand the face-to-path relationship. So one of the easiest ways that I do to control face-to-path is this little pitch shot drill. And all I'm trying to do is get my delivery lined up. I'm trying to get the face, the blue line, and the red line, the path, get them all going the same direction. Here again, it's not about creating a long shot. It's just about making sure that they hit shots that are consistent. I'd like for the ball to curve one way or the other, not both. Inconsistency issue. They have both directions. We've got to get them going in one direction. And this is a great thing to be able to do that. All right, let's talk about the second problem that you average ball face. Like distance. You got to manage your expectations. One of the greatest charts that I've seen from Trackman is the club head speed, angle of attack 5 up, 0, 5 down. Because it gives you a way to say, look, Mr. Johnson, it is physiologically impossible for you to create this ball speed, this distance, with these numbers. And the great thing about that is it finally puts them, when they see a chart that Iron Byron said on the Trackman, it puts them at rest. They finally go, wow, maybe I am unrealistic. I can tell them, I can teach every tour player under the sun tomorrow, and if I say, wow, your expectations are on there or not there, you're trying to hit too far, it doesn't work, they'll go, yeah, whatever, man. I show them this chart, and say, Iron Byron said it, they go, oh. So it makes sense. So all I got to do is just, I guess, put it down on paper. So as we continue on here, you've got to figure out where's the power lead coming from lack of distance, okay? Where's the club head speed? Why is it slowing down? Is it a big issue? Is it a path issue? Is it a physiological issue? All those kind of good things right here. We really need to understand why it's occurring. Once you can do that, then you can start to attack that. We know that club head speed, ball speed, smash all integrate to create, the distance. So all of a sudden, if you're hitting it all over the face, or you're having a lot of issues, with vertical or horizontal impact, you're going to have some issues in distance. We know the impact point can also exacerbate or eradicate a lot of distance. You start catching on the toe, it doesn't matter how fast you're swinging. You start beating it all over the face, and you're going to be inefficient. So we really have to make sure that we understand how to control our impact points as well as our impact as far as the smash is concerned, so we can create the power that we're looking for. Now, as we start to look at the actions of the club, we have the angle attack. And when you start chopping up and chopping down on it, you can start to move the vertical inclination of the impact around. You can influence it. You've got extreme face-to-path relationships. You start cutting across it, face open, face closed. We know that extremes in face-to-path are going to reduce smash, are going to reduce distance. So if you got guys sawing across it, it's going to be really difficult for him to hit the ball a long way. So we really have to make sure that we get ourselves in a good position face-to-path wise. And obviously we know that there's some sort of fitting component in like this. I mean, we all know that some of our students come in and they've got a driver set on 4 degrees or a driver set on 15 degrees or whatever, and that's going to obviously kind of work into it as well. Now, when we start getting flight characteristics, we know that dynamic loft controls between 75% and 85% of our launch angle. So how they deliver the club, if they're a handle drag or they're flipping it, can really influence your distance. And you have to take a look at it. I look at dynamic loft a lot more than I do launch angle. That's just me personally. Some of the others might do different ways, but that's just me as a person. And I really like the dynamic loft characteristic because it really helps me understand what they're trying to do. You know, if you have egregious changes in dynamic loft, you're going to have a lot of issues in distance. We know that with our launch angle, our dynamic loft, our face to path, our cover speed, all that kind of stuff, they correlate spin rate, height, and landing angle. We know that we need to create consistent motions as far as spin rate and height to create the landing angle that we're looking for when we start spinning the golf ball, because we have to make sure that the ball hits the ground and runs. Now, as we all know, the Trackman measures the roll characteristics based on PGA Tour fairways, and not too many of us play on golf courses that have PGA Tour fairways as far as that firmness. So when you're dealing with spin rate, height, and landing angle, remember you really need to correlate what your conditions are outside, because a big one right in the winter, it's a swamp until March. So I'm really going to make them carry it as far as human possible. I don't want to get on the ground too early. All right, so when we start talking about lack of distance, once again, our job is to make things easier. Here's just an average player. You see a ball speed of 122, club speed 85, base to path, all that kind of good stuff, looking pretty good. We see spin rates a little low, but what's the biggest thing that jumps out at you? Dynamic loft of 11.3 and a height of 38 feet. This guy's hitting low yards. Okay. Landing angle is 22 degrees, so he's hitting a chaser. Okay, well, but he's in North Florida. What's he going to do when they oversee in October? Not going anywhere. So before we start doing anything aggressively, I'd like to make smaller changes to see if I can affect these things in a big way. So all I did was I teed the ball up, put it more forward, added some loft on his driver, and nothing changes. We see a little bit of spin rate changes, but we see dynamic loft goes up, height goes up, carry goes up. Now this guy has a chance to play golf the way he's capable. Because if he's hitting low darters, I know he kind of shoved it a little bit, but if he's hitting low darters on overseas fairways, he's pushing them uphill. So how do we increase your angle attack? This is one of the big ones. I don't remember who my lecturer is from, and the greatest thing you can do is you can take if we're hitting the ball this way, this picture I'm going to show, hit the ball this way, you can take a live wood. I put 2 balls on the ground, step on them, and I put a little ramp right up behind the golf ball. So you've got the live board, and you've got the ball teed up right here. Okay? So it's a great visual to help people swing up the ramp to get the feeling of hitting up on the golf ball. You know, trying to cover the ramp, so to speak. And it's a great way for people to get the feeling of swinging up. I tend to chop down on it as I come over and swing left and down. And now you see when I do the ramp drill, it really makes me, swing a bit more up. Another great thing, when you have players, better players, that tend to have too much handle drag, tend to have to produce too much dynamic loft, a great drill to do this is you put the ball on tee, like I put it on, I have a rubber tee there, I put it on a driver tee, and I give them a 5-iron. What I have to do is I try to have them dump the lag. Now obviously you can see the dynamic loft in this 5-iron here is a little bit higher than what it should be, so that's what I want. I'm giving them the feeling of how to control their lag, how to make sure that they understand when they reach impact, we don't want the handle dragging forward. We don't want the handle backing up. It gives them a good way to feel this. And here again, that's a really good thing for the better players. You don't see that too much in the average player unless they've been taught hands forward, hands forward, hands forward. You get a lot of those guys that come in here and they've got 2 degrees of dynamic lock and these low chasers. Okay, so now as we talk about the slicing, everybody's favorite. So what do we see? You see people that say, oh, please God, don't make the ball go to the right. Anything but go to the right. So we have a lot of slicers, and we also have people that have the inability to move the ball to the left. All right. So the key to this is fix the problem quickly, because you have to remember, if you're a good player, you don't freak out if you hit the ball to the right. You know, have a bad day, shove it a little bit. Tomorrow will be better. Next week it'll be better. But an average player, if they're sitting up here and they're hitting the ball, right to right with the blinker on, they came to you and said, please do anything to make this thing go to the right. So you need to get to it immediately, because if you don't get to it immediately, they're not going to be very happy. All right, so as we know, angle attack and swing direction form your true club path. You have to understand that as you start changing angle attacks, the path shifts. We all know that. But the one thing about swing direction and angle attack is they're heavily influenced by your alignment. So if you start having some issues in your club path, check swing direction and make sure that these people aren't lined up too funky, because that's going to kind of skew these things a little bit. And you can aim somebody a little bit to the right to move that swing direction just a little bit this way, and hopefully they will chop down on too much. But remember, you've got to give people permission to move. And how many times have we seen somebody say, do me a favor, give me a big old hook, and they go, nice little hook. And they say, why? I said, well, why don't you do that on the golf course? Well, that's not right. It sure is. Not everybody has to be lined up, as we all know from the traction studies. Parallel, there's target. Some a little bit right, some a little bit left. So a lot of that correlates with the angle attacks. You just kind of fill with that a little bit. We know that when you have a path issue, there's some sort of pivot issue, there's some sort of sequencing issue. All of you know how to teach, all of you have taught over topics a million times. Understand the alignments and your path and your alignments and your pivot all have to correlate together so you get that right short, say back and down and the downs. Okay, so now that's a path issue. Now we have to talk a little bit about the face. Okay, so we know that the face can be influenced at impact by your grip. Forearm roll, ball position, things like that. One of the things about Trackman is pretty easy to have vertical swing plan. And vertical swing plan obviously charts the line of an impact. Now, what you have to remember is as the vertical swing plan comes up, the blade tends to open up. And when the blade opens up, obviously shift the face to the right path. If the hand's low, blade turns the shift things up. And that's not every time, but it's a lot of the time. Now, when vertical swing plane changes aggressively, hands come up a whole bunch. Not only is it opening up, but also is shortening the swing, or you can get people that hit off the toe. So remember, horizontal gear effect can negate face and path, and you don't even know it. So really pay attention to your vertical swing plane when you're working on, and horizontal gear effect when you're working on people that slicing. Now, as we get to face and path control, we know, like I said before, that sometimes you shift the path left, or from left to right. Sometimes you got to shift the face the other way. Look, what's easiest for the student? If I have a beater, so to speak, and they play once a month, am I really going to try to shift their path more to the right? I'm going to aim them to the right to make that a little bit more direct. It's a little bit easier for them not to swing so much left. Then I'm going to get them to nose the face, I hit big, pull, tug, draw, and then have these plans. It's not always about doing what you would do for your better player. Now, if you have the time, and you have a student that's going to take some lessons, sure, to shift the path more to the right. But for the most part, you got to do what's easiest. Now, when we get to spin axis, once we've done all this, we've got these players learning how to move the ball around. This is the biggest key. Go back to being a kid again. If I take this gentleman right here and he says, I can't draw the golf ball, I said, sure, I'll do it. Let's put a tree right here. Do me a favor. Just give me a snap hook around this tree. He goes, oh, it's easy. So what if you fade around the tree? Right around the tree. Remember, it's in there. All of you have spent time on the range. All of your students have spent time on the range, hitting big hooks and slices, just scooping around. But they get on the golf course and they need the permission to know that they can move their alignments. They can shift their face, they can shift their path, they can do these things. So it's up to you to give them permission and help them to understand it. It's in there. They just got two ball handle thoughts. All right, so here is a typical over-the-top slicer. So one of the things that I have to do in October when I go home for a month, for free room and board in the beach, is to help Mom here. So you see Mom kind of cuts across. Well, she's one of those players that tends to line up her feet a little bit right, shoulder to the left. We know the path tends to, and the arms tend to follow the shoulder. Swing direction other, and the arms will follow the shoulders within the reach. So first thing we do is line her up a little bit more to the right, we square everything up, and now all of a sudden we've taken a path, we've taken a path that's brutally left, and we move it with it. Now, I don't expect everybody to make this type of change. We also work with some pivot things, keep the right shoulder back a little bit. But the bottom line is when we get you squared up, and when we line you more to the right, within reason, we can have the influence of moving the path and the swing direction to the right. Now, usually what you're going to find with slicers, they're so used to swinging left, they know where the target is. So if you're swinging down and left and the target's to the right, what do you think your face angle is going to do? It's going to the right. This is exactly. See, I shift the path to the right. Where's the face angle? Right of the path. Where's it going? Right. What's the player want? I want to hook it. So all you do is you got to make sure that they touch the face down. This can be done through driver setting, through grip, through form roll, blah, 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 ball position, whatever. Now, I'm not telling you in 1/10,000 of a second that you can time the release of the club, because that's not possible. But you can give them permission to say, hey, look, you might feel a little bit more of this. And look, I'm not really overly concerned that Mom has her face angle left the target. She says pulls. Remember, she came in on a slicer. She came in as a person that doesn't practice. She came in as somebody that plays twice a week in Florida and has about 18 other things going on. So it's really not that big a deal for her to hit 4 balls. Anything that doesn't go to the right, she's happy. So one of the greatest inventions is play stick. It's amazing how that little stick that everybody has in their bag is making so much money. Well, this is one that I have that's set on the mat, and you can see I've come over the top of it, swing down and left. So I put this play stick up, and all of a sudden, my swing direction, my club path moves to the right. Why? Because I'm no different than you. I don't have a clock on that stick. So all of a sudden, it makes certain things happen in the pivot, the right shoulder, blah, 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 and it shifts the path to the right. So giving people feedback tools that help them to not make mistakes is very, very valuable. And now with Trackman, which is so great, I can show somebody, hey, that's the feeling. They go, God, this feels like crap. I said, I know it feels like crap, but that's what we're looking for. And they go, okay, and I say, how are you doing? What are you feeling different? Well, I'm wiggling my left ear at the top. Well, great, you're near wiggler, now you know how to get the club back down to the inside. That's how it feels. Now, once again, I talked about going back to being a kid, face to path. You see I've got an impact bag up there, you can barely see it on this one. You see right there, I just hit a big sweep and hook around the impact bag. You have to go back and relearn the feels of face to path. You've been swinging down and left and hanging on the face, it's been going right to right. That's what feels normal. So all of a sudden, swinging from the inside and getting the face to close down feels radically different. Let them go back to be a kid again. Now, say, go on, Ranger. Hit me a bunch of slices. Hit me a bunch of hooks. And that'll be a good way for you to feel that. Okay, so moving on to impact point consistency. This is huge. One of the greatest things as far as consistency is concerned I've seen was in the Learning Center. We have a particular tour pro that plays out there. And I sprayed the face. We just goof around the track there. And a member comes up, just grabs me for a couple minutes. So Casey hits balls for a couple minutes, and I come back in about 3, 4, 5 minutes. And he said, let's say $10, $15. That's what I see. So as a tour pro, you go, okay, well, that's pretty good. The only other mark you see is him grabbing balls out of the thing. But a little low, a little to the right, on the toe, big deal. The guy knows what his consistency is. So if you don't have that type of consistency out of your players, it tends to look more like this. And and I'll tell you what it's worth this here in a second. You're going to have a lot of trouble. So I sprayed the face. I was doing this handicap study for golf courses as far as I wrote. So I sprayed the face. I said, hit me 5 balls. And he said, stick, I'm striping it. And I went, wow. Okay, but it's different levels. You don't have to be here. We certainly want a little bit better than there. So let's go back to impact point consistency, figure out how we can get it. So on the horizontal side of impact consistency, okay, we have the path. If we have extreme face and path directions, you're going to have a lot of trouble with your horizontal impact point. And yes, it can also influence the vertical, but we're just going to say, for the most part, it's kind of a horizontal impact point. We know that vertical swing plane that raise or lowers is to move the face around. That's going to also skew your horizontal impact point. We've talked about impact point, and we know that toe and heel hits can influence the face-to-path relationship. So once again, when you start having issues with the club, you've got to make sure that you understand what the horizontal impact point's doing. Now let's move over to impact. As we start having pivot issues, they're moving the low point around. If you're moving the low point around, and you're trying to stick your peg in the ground, you're flipping at it, and you're doing this, that, and the other, we're going to have issues on the vertical side, okay? We know that your angle of attack, chopping up and down, spinning up, can also influence where that thing is vertically, okay? So as we're moving around with your angle of attack, your dynamic loft, and that spin-loft number, these are things that can influence your vertical impacts, and those are things that can really get you in trouble. So we have the horizontal side, we have the vertical side. Now, there are other contributing factors to this. It could be alignment. Sure, you get some guy that's lined up 50 yards right or left, and they're going to have some issues. Not to mention ball position, club fitting. So all of a sudden, how about the guy that's got the 3-wood back off his right foot, trying to get high in the air? I mean, he's going to do certain things, his face, his path, and it can be toe, heel, high, low, it can be anywhere. So we really want to make sure that we have some reasonable impact point consistency. It doesn't have to be like this, but it needs to be like this. Now let's go back for a second, and let's think about your average player. You see high vertical. You see toe horizontal. So all of a sudden, we're going to see some different spin rates. We're going to see some different curvatures. And how in the world is this player going to be consistent? He's not going to be very consistent. So we have to get these impact points reasonable. As I said, I don't expect my average player to ever look like this. But if I can get them somewhere centralized in here, then I'm going to be in good shape. So one of the easiest ways to do that, wrong slide. Well, here's a pivot issue. Back up. Here's a little pivot issue the guy's flipping at, adding his loft and his 5-iron. His spin loft number's too high, and he's getting little poof balls. Now, the guy's got a lot of speed, so his 5-iron goes the wrong way. But the guy hits it, 130 feet high, so he's dead to the wind. So remember, when you have impact point issues that are caused by the pivot, you can have some issues in your spin rate. Here's the vertical swing plane. You'll see this light, you see the yellow line. You see that Webb here tends to lift up his club at impact. And so now we see, this is interesting. We see club path, we see face angle, okay? We see a face path 4. Okay, that ball should have cut a little bit more, but if you look at the far right, you look at that little guy right there, dead straight. Why? Because he's on the toe. The face to path to the right, the toe canceled out, ball went dead straight. So all of a sudden, that's where your vertical swing thing can kind of jump in here. So as I was saying before, I messed up the slides, but the easiest way to get the horizontal impact point under control is to have it down the track. There's a little stick there, there's a little stick there, the ball's obviously right in the middle of it. All I'm doing is I'm giving myself just a little track to swing down. I'm just taking little easy golf swings to see if I can't put this ball back in the center of the face. Because once again, if you can't control the horizontal impacts, you're going to have a lot of inconsistency. Now, vertical impact is really difficult to control. This is one of the things, probably the hardest thing for people to understand. We know that hitting up with a golf ball, the low point has to be behind the golf ball, so you get more up. And when you do off the club, hit down, the low point goes more forward. Okay? So the easiest way I've found is to tee the ball up at varying heights. And this is my driver. I'm swinging 66 miles an hour, which is obviously slower than I'm normally swinging. And I'm trying to experiment with fields and tee heights and release patterns that create different impacts on the driver. Sometimes you just have to let people fumble around. And that's the thing that I want people to understand when you're doing this. Trackman is your tool to audit field. How am I going to teach somebody vertical impact control if they're a child? it's going to be pretty difficult. But if I let them fumble around for a while, I say, okay, get lost for a couple minutes. Let's see how it works. They will find something that works. That takes the pressure off you. You're using the machine to your advantage, and you're teaching them feel. Very, very, very important. All right. Last thing we'll talk about is the big potential. Everybody's favorite thing, get in there and all of a sudden off the planet. Well, off the planet shots. I think a lot of those are not sure there's some mechanical device that cause the big face of path or point. But if you're standing up there, there's a lake right there. God, don't slice it, don't slice it, don't slice it, don't slice it. Where do you think it's going? So the first thing you have to do is don't be serious. Slice it. If you start thinking about it, you're going to slice it. So once again, we know angle tax good direction forms the path. We know face angle and path, face to path, very, very important. What you have to do with a big miss is you have to help your student understand why they have the big miss. Does the path go left? Does the path go right? Is the face angle here? Is the face angle there? But that's the biggest thing, is helping them to understand it's the face to path that's causing the big miss for the most part. Sure, there's other factors, but that's usually the biggest issue. Well, the great thing is you have a machine that measures that. And you have a way that all of you know how to control path, and you have a way that all of you know how to control face. We've talked at length about how the horizontal gear effect can exacerbate or negate your face to path work. Make sure that all correlates. And if you do that, you're going to be able to control your spin axis. Now, as we add other factors in, if you increase club head speed, you're going to increase the miss paths. They're going to go further and farther offline. As you increase club head speed, ball speed is going to tend to increase, so you have to be very cognizant of your smash. Okay? If you beat it all over the face, it's going to lead to, the big miss. Dynamic loft, spin loft, we know that as we change dynamic loft, we're going to say the angle of attack is constant. As we change dynamic loft, spin loft becomes more narrow. The more narrow the spin loft, the more aggressive the D-plane tilts, and the more aggressive the D-plane tilts, the greater the spin axis provided by golf ball. So when you have that big miss, if they're delivering 15 different spin lofts, you're changing the amount of balls in the curve. Okay? So you have to be real careful on that spin loft side. So like I said before, I'm not talking about delivering 23 degrees of spin loft every single time. What I'm talking about is delivering a spin loft that's in a range. A lot of the things with the average player, you have to deliver some sort of range. Just make sure it's reasonable. And that'll help you to stop the big miss. Okay, so here's a great example of a big miss. You can see the guy's path 3-5 to the right, face angle 16-1. Guy's ball's going off in a tree somewhere. Okay, so all I explained to this guy, I said, hey, look, you're swinging pretty decently. But I said, you've got way too much tension. You're choking the crap out of it. You're raising the thing coming through, and the ball's going to go to the right. So all of a sudden, we go back, and I said, do me a favor. I want you to visualize. This is the greatest thing. Since I'm talking about Trackman, let me tell you the greatest thing on Trackman is this blue line and that red arrow. We can talk until we're blue in the face about path and face. I can show them all the numbers, and it doesn't mean squat until I show them that video. And that's why I love the screencast. That's probably the biggest thing that sold me on the Trackman. Is I went, you see that? You say, hey, the ball's going to start with the red arrow and curve away from the blue arrow. They go, oh my God, you mean my face is open? That's what I've been telling you all day. Now, if I say take this arrow from here and move it that way, I don't care how you do it. You can think about flamingos for all I care. And when he does that, that produces the face-path relationship, the spin axis is under control, and the ball goes a lot straighter. So you have to remember that sometimes, and as I said, sometimes talking about numbers ties them up in numbers. They're pretty smart people. You say, they can do that, they're in pretty good shape. So, the big miss potential, the drills for the big miss potential, just slow motion and work your way up to full speed. That's usually what I do. Help you to understand, hey, if you're doing this, you can't run furlongs before you learn to crawl. So why am I letting you bang drivers at Mach 1? Let's start slow and work our way back up. So, as I said before in my opening statement, I am very, very open to talk to each and every one of you about Trackman, because when I first bought Trackman, I didn't know squat. I had another machine that I didn't really use a lot of the things about it. And I reached out to a lot of my friends in the industry who are regarded as Trackman experts, from the Trackman experts here to different guys that teach. Okay? There's a little bit different thoughts on how to teach with Trackman. I don't know everything. I know something. And whatever that something is, I'll be more than happy to tell you how I use it. And if it works for you, great. If you can take one piece of the puzzle that I do that saves yourself some housing in the Trackman, that's what we're here for. But as I said, call me, email me, text me anytime, and I'll be more than happy to. And the last thing I'll say is thank you so very much for giving me the time and your attention to do this. I can't tell you enough how fun it is to be Trackman and how much I enjoy teaching since it's coming to my world. Thank you so much.
First of all, Tom, great presentation. Thank you very much. Any questions for Tom? The answer all right there. Anybody?
Tommy, I got one.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. How come with that last slide that you showed and the home run you hit with that gentleman that finally figured out the facing path and is that the guy that had 16 open?
Yes, sir.
So how come there's so much dialogue and banter back and forth with this facing path issue?
Tell Tiger all the time.
When
I use that last. Somebody else is going to thank you. I'll pay you some money for that later. Okay, yes, sir. How come so much man?
how come you saw it right there, your students saw it right there, you made such a great change just getting the club faces square up and turn over for the guy. How come, for instance, you don't do more of that with a lady like your mom who comes over the top and hits that full fade?
Because her path, if you look at this guy's path, oops, not done. His mother's path was 11-9 left, and mother's was chopping across pretty bad. She's 11-9 left. Yeah, could I nose the space angle left, but she'd hit off the planet to the left. And I had a little bit more time. I was at home. I had a little bit more time. If it was a one lesson deal, I'd probably aim a little bit more to the right, and I'd probably just nudge the face a little bit more left. But here again, you have to also look at the student that you have. This guy had 2 left feet, to be quite honest. And so I needed to just make, his path was pretty good, but he just go down the right side. That's why I kind of nudged it over there.
How often do you address path before fixing?
Depends on the student. It just really depends on how much time the student. Some students come in, they go, I'm slicing, I can feel myself coming over and I got to stop it. They pretty much told you what they want to do. You have to kind of explain to them, you still have to maintain some sort of playability. And you still have to say, look, as we're moving this way, we got to move this way, and let's kind of just take it in stride. But if you've got a guy that says, I'm not coming over anymore, that's pretty much what you want to do, because you're there to do what they want. Does that make sense? Anybody else? Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you, Bubba. I made it all up.